Good evening, everyone. We appreciate all of you being here. We've filled up the chambers. We have some neat things happening tonight, and we appreciate you all being here for this. Let the roll call reflect that all council members are present with the exceptions of Vice Chair Nadolski, who was asked to be excused today. And also, I need to make note for the record that this is the November 20th, 2018 Ogden City Council meeting. We asked Councilmember White if she would lead us in the pledge. So follow her instructions.
Please rise. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That sounded good.
That was good. That was very nice. Thank you, and would you please join us for a moment of silence? Thank you. All right, tonight we have 4 recognitions. The first is for Kenneth J. Alford, and I have elected to do that. It's a little out of the ordinary for the chair to do those, but I have some personal experience with former council member. He's done everything, as you'll understand when I read this recognition, but he's a dear friend of mine, and I very much appreciate his leadership, his mentorship for me. He also was the council member for Municipal Ward 2 at the time. It's now District 2, but and so we have a lot in common, and so I appreciate him. We'd also done a lot of recognitions after people had passed away, and we thought that didn't make a lot of sense, so we thought we ought to do them while people are still alive that have contributed so much to our city. So if you will bear with me. The Ogden City Council and Mayor proudly recognize Ken Alford for providing invaluable contributions to the Ogden community. Ken Alford's life is one of service that has touched many lives through a variety of ways. In the United States Air Force, Ken Alford served his country as a navigator and rose to the ranks of lieutenant colonel. He served on the board of directors at Hill Air Force Base Museum for 4 years, where the same Fairchild C-119 flying boxcar that Ken flew while serving in the military stands outside the museum. As an educator, Ken taught history and geography for the Ogden School District. He also served as assistant principal at Mount Ogden Junior High School and then principal at Hillcrest Elementary School, Central Junior High, and Mount Ogden Junior High School. Ken worked in the district office for a year before retiring in 1988. Ken also spent many years serving as an elected official, representing District 7 in the Utah legislature from 1981 to 1986, and serving on the Ogden City Council from 1996 to 2003. Ken served in many leadership positions within the community and his church, and served his wife, Dolores, on a religious mission in Spain. Ken has positively affected countless lives throughout his service, and we are grateful for his selfless attitude that makes us proud to call him one of Ogden's own. We hope others look to his example and express our appreciation for all that he has done for the Ogden community. Presented this 20th day of November 2018, and the 8 years that he was a council member, he served for 4 years as chair of the council. So, and I have heard it said by many that he served as the best chair that has ever served in the council, and I believe that's to be true. So, if we can just give him a round of applause and have him come up. have a plaque for you, Kim. You want to bring your loving wife and your children and those who have come to support you. We're going to take a photo, so you need to come.
They didn't know they signed up for that.
Pam kind of ran some of this through the back channels, and we appreciate her for doing this. Thank you. Do you want to go by and shake everybody's hand?
I'd like to, yeah.
Thank you. And then we'd like to hear a word from you.
Gotta come back this way.
Yeah, we're gonna stand right here for the photo anyway, so. Who do you want to be in the photo with you? You've got some grandchildren that are holdouts down there, I know, and
Come on up. Come on up.
oh, did you?
Perfect.
Oh,
There we go again.
should have waited.
There's a lot more in the
Good.
chamber.
Yeah, this is good.
I'd like to have young kids in it.
Kids in front of me.
Yeah, perfect.
I don't have to get my stool. It's the first time I ever felt tall.
Here's my chair.
Yeah, please enlighten us.
I'm good.
In the 8 years I was on the council, I never spoke from this side of the dais. So. Just want to thank you all for your consideration and mention that each council builds on the previous council. When my group was with Mark was chosen to be on the council, we were across the street, meeting in what is now the, I don't know what's over. I guess the University of Phoenix, a few things there, that was across the street. And they came to the council and said, why don't you as a council design a city council room, the ideal city council room, if you could just start from scratch. So we sat down with the architect, and this is what you got. And so we were pleased with it, weren't we, Mark? And not realizing that Mark would be here keeping the thing going. But it was a fun thing to do, to turn this old city-county building in this particular portion. It was not by accident they chose the third floor. If you look outside, this is the last floor going up that has the full structure. From there on up, and that's what happened to the mayor. He's got that little cutting up above. The higher you go, the less space you get. So we chose this area. So a lot of thought went into this, and it was the council that designed this room and for our future council. So I do thank you all. It's been a pleasure to work in Ogden City. Notice I brought my own cheering section.
It was good. It was good.
And when I gave my swan song in leaving the council, I just said this. Remember, when you're enjoying the shade, think about those guys that planted your trees. And so you do build on previous councils, and a lot of good men and women have served in this council through the years, and we build on what they had, and you're building on what we had. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All the photos along the back wall of the different versions of the council, and Ken is in 4 of those pictures, so if you want to kind of scope him out one of these times, it's kind of a fun experience to kind of look back. All right, next item on our agenda is the honorary mayors of Christmas Village, and we've asked Mayor Caldwell if he would make that presentation.
This is a big honor for me to do this, so I'll read through all of the legalese and muckety muck, but our heart is all in the right spot with this. We do appreciate everything that's happening. So I don't get a chance to do these very often, but I do appreciate this special privilege. So we have a joint proclamation of the Ogden City Council and Mayor declaring November 24th, 2018 as Perry and Sarah Huffaker Day in Ogden City. Whereas Perry and Sarah Huffaker were inspiring people who touched many lives, they were known for their hard work, sense of humor, and ability to make people laugh and feel special. Perry and Sarah hold a special part in this community. They tragically passed away on July 26, 2017, leaving behind their loving family and many who cared deeply for them. And whereas Perry and Sarah were married on April 6, 1995 in the Salt Lake City Temple, they had 4 children, Mackenzie, Caden, Jackson, and Aubrey. Their children were their greatest joy. Both Perry and Sarah worked incredibly hard to support their family. They were extensively involved in service in their church. They loved to travel and spend time with their children. And whereas Sarah Karen Payne was born and raised in the Ogden area and was the second of 6 children. She had an outgoing personality and was friendly to many. She graduated from Weber High and then attended Dixie College. She completed her cosmetology degree program at the Ogden ATC, and whereas Sarah cared deeply for the welfare of others, she was known for her intelligence and unwavering kindness. Sarah was a dedicated wife and mother who worked tirelessly to take care of her children and her home. She was a great cook and always cultivated her flowers and garden to look beautiful. Whereas Perry L. Huffaker was born in Ogden and was the 5th of 9 children. He graduated from Lake Stevens High School in Lake Stevens, Washington. He served a mission for the Church of the Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in New York and Hartford, Connecticut. And whereas throughout his life, Perry used his talents to help others, he could build or fix anything and served as a public ways and parks manager for Ogden City. Perry was very involved in the community through his service and support of the Christmas Village Committee, Ogden Trails Network Committee, and the Ogden Pioneer Days Committee. And whereas each year Perry was significantly involved both professionally and personally in ensuring Ogden's Christmas Village was a huge success. Perry and Sarah led lives committed to serving their community and are greatly missed. We are grateful for the opportunity to highlight and celebrate their legacy and know that they will be fondly remembered for many years to come. Now, therefore, Mayor Michael P. Caldwell and the Ogden City Council do hereby proclaim November 24th, 2018 as Perry and Sarah Huffaker Day in Ogden and declare them the honorary mayors of Christmas Village for 2018. We express our sincere gratitude for their unparalleled contributions to our community and encourage everyone to join us in honoring Perry and Sarah by visiting and enjoying Ogden's Christmas Village, passed and adopted this 20th day of November in 2018. So thank them, and it's an amazing honor to be able to read that.
Chair Hire. The joint proclamation.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember White, seconded by Councilmember Lopez to adopt the joint proclamation. All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Okay, it's done.
Now we
Now we can clap. Photo op. So those who are here to receive this, who else here?
see a lot of blue sweatshirts.
Yeah,
We need the whole committee to come up with them, don't we?
I think we do. Okay, you blue sweatshirt people, don't be sitting around. You got to come up.
Are these done?
I don't know. Thank you.
Thanks for being here. Guess we'll see you Saturday, huh?
Yeah, we'll see you on Saturday.
Thanks for being here. Thanks for taking a picture last time. Thank you.
Ah, way down there.
Thank you. Appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being here. Thank you. Okay, come on up and let's put the family in the front and the blue sweatshirts here, and we'll kind of think tall thoughts. Let's, where do you want everybody, Brandon?
Rich, close together as they can be.
Can everybody see Brandon?
Stacy's hiding.
All right, everybody over here. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. There we go.
Thank you.
I just want to say what an honor this is. I know how big of a part Ogden City played in my dad's lives, as well as my mom's. But I'm just so thankful to all of Ogden City for all the things that they've done to recognize and memorialize my parents. So thank you all very much.
Thanks, Kenzie. All right. Next item on our agenda is our buy local joint resolution. We've asked Councilmember Choburka if she would present this one.
Oh, I'm happy to. I really tried to buy the majority of my gifts locally, so I encourage everybody else to do that too. So this is, this is a joint resolution of the Ogden City Council and Mayor, challenging citizens to join the Ogden City Council and Mayor Caldwell in doing holiday shopping within Ogden city limits. Whereas the Ogden City Council and Mayor Caldwell invite everyone to be aware of the benefits that come from local commerce and to focus this year's holiday shopping and dining within Ogden city limits. And whereas shifting even 10% of holiday spending toward businesses within Ogden can significantly contribute to our local economy and well-being. Making a conscious effort to buy local can facilitate local economic growth, enhance product convenience, make shopping areas more vibrant and less susceptible to crime, and lessen environmental impacts that come from traveling to shop. And whereas shopping and dining at businesses within our community keeps sales dollars, tax dollars in Ogden, which provides a direct benefit to Ogden residents. These tax dollars allow Ogden City to provide services such as public safety, water, garbage, and entertainment, as well as improve the city in which we work, live, learn, and play. And whereas patronizing local businesses supports our neighbors and community, keeping jobs in Ogden is vital to the health and vibrancy of our community. The more interesting and unique we are as a community, the more we will attract new neighbors and visitors. And whereas we proudly promote holiday shopping and dining at businesses in Ogden and encourage our community to unite together as we invest in our great city. Now, therefore, it be resolved that the Ogden City Council and Mayor Michael P. Caldwell are committed to focus on shopping and dining in Ogden during this holiday season and challenge all residents to participate in this endeavor by supporting businesses located throughout the city. We acknowledge and are grateful for the efforts of the Ogden Downtown Alliance, Local First Utah, and all other community groups that help promote commerce in Ogden, passed and adopted this 20th day of November 2018. And should I do a motion for that?
Please do, yeah.
So I would like to offer a motion to adopt the joint resolution.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Choburka, seconded by Councilmember White to adopt Resolution 2018-8. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Okay, great. Who is here to receive this, by the way? Yeah.
Oh, I see you. Danielle.
Okay.
Thank you. Oh, that's okay. I saw the pictures. Do you want to shake her hand?
Okay, you got to pay. Give us our pay now.
Shake hands. Shake
No,
it.
you just
No,
gotta shake
you
everybody's
have
hand.
to- like Van White.
Like Vanna White.
Thanks so much.
Now a photo.
Okay, now you
Now the
can.
photo.
There we go. Would you like to say a few words?
Our executive director, Kim Boucher, couldn't be here today, so she asked me to say a few words for her on behalf of herself and the Ogden Downtown Alliance. Ogden Downtown Alliance, for those here that may not know, we are committed to increasing economic vitality and community vibrancy in Ogden's downtown districts. And we are so grateful to be able to do that in a city that has a government that is so supportive of our local economy. And the fact that Ogden is a city that is so submerged in locally owned and operated businesses, I think says a lot about our city at large and about the true talent that lives here and strives here. I think for us, this proclamation is twofold. It's a wonderful reminder this holiday season to go out and support local, commission a local artist to make a one-of-a-kind painting, or visit one of the boutiques on 25th Street and say hi to your friends and support what they're building, and with unique, quirky gifts that are one of a kind. And secondly, this represents for us the joint commitment and passions of us and the Ogden City government, with our shared passion for local businesses and for Ogden at large. So thank you so much for this, and happy shopping.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. And next is the recognition for the Native American Heritage Month, and we've asked Councilmember Blair if he would present this one.
Yes, thank you, Chair Heyer. Just as a reminder, this was actually passed or adopted on October 30th, and because we wanted to have it done before November so the whole month could be honored, but this was adopted on October 30th, and we didn't read it that night, so we're going to do it tonight. It reads, a joint proclamation of the Ogden City Council and Mayor declaring November 2018 Native American Heritage Month in Ogden City. Whereas, for millennia before Europeans settled in North America, the native people of this continent flourished. From generation to generation, they handed down invaluable cultural knowledge and rich traditions. Native Americans were the first to live in what is now Ogden, and whereas Native Americans have significantly shaped our country's character and culture, they were the first stewards of our environment and helped to build the very fabric of America. Our cultural heritage has been enriched immeasurably by their customs and traditions, with each tribe sharing wonderful portions of its unique history and character. And whereas Native Americans have also served this country with distinction, sharing their wealth of knowledge and talents, many foods, medicines, and remedies that are used today were introduced by them, and they have made notable contributions in education, government, law, medicine, sports, the military, science, and literature. Their many contributions continue to enrich and strengthen our community, and whereas we cannot forget the long and unfortunate chapters of violence, discrimination, and deprivation Native Americans were forced to endure. For far too long, the heritage we honor today was disrespected and devalued. We cannot ignore these events or erase their consequences, but as we work together, we can learn from the lessons of our past and forge an even brighter future. Whereas today, we honor the legacy of Native Americans and celebrate their rich heritage. Native American Heritage Month is an opportunity for our community to learn about Native American culture and gain an awareness of the unique challenges Native people have faced and the ways in which they have worked to overcome these challenges. Now, therefore, the Ogden City Council and Mayor Michael P. Caldwell hereby proclaim November 18th Native American Heritage Month in Ogden City. We recognize the profound influence of Native Americans and acknowledge the importance of their contributions throughout the greater Ogden community. We express our sincere appreciation for Weber State's 13th Annual Native Symposium and for all others who are working to highlight and embrace Native cultures. And tonight we have with us Tashina Barber and the student senator Bessie are here tonight to accept this proclamation. So I'll have them come up.
Is there anybody else here with you?
They want Michiko to come up.
Hold out. Sure, yeah.
We'll call that the practice room.
Thank you so much for coming.
Well, hello. My name is Bessie Pettigrew. I am from the Navajo tribe. I'm a junior currently at Weber State University, studying in criminal justice, minoring in sociology. I'm currently serving as the 2018-2019 American Indian Senator and also as the Secretary for American Indian Council. On behalf of Weber State University and the American Indian Council, thank you to the Ogden City Council and the Mayor for the honorary joint proclamation recognizing Weber State University's Native Symposium, Native American Heritage Month, and the contribution of Native people locally and nationally. I would also like to extend my thanks to Weber State University leadership, Interim President Norm Terbox, and the Weber State University Assistant Vice President for Diversity and Chair Diversity Officer Adrian Andrews. The American Indian Council would also like to thank the Center for Multicultural Excellence and the director, Michiko, who is here supporting us tonight. The American Indian Council would also like to give a special thanks to our wonderful advisor, Tashina Barber, who is also here tonight, for the efforts to ensure the Native student body voice is heard and celebrated. The American Indian Council at Weber State University is a student-run club that organizes activities and events that honor the beauty of Native American cultures. The American Indian Council aims to provide quality opportunities through academic and extracurricular experiences that encourage Native student engagement within the university and community. I would also like to invite you to the 2019 Weber State University Indigenous Voices Powwow that is scheduled for April 6, 2019 at the Weber State University's Ballroom. This event offers a cultural platform for the Weber State University American Indian Council members to showcase their leadership, to serve as role members for Native youth, and work towards creating lasting relationships between the university, surrounding Native communities, and Ogden City area. Thank you again for this recognition.
Thank you. Okay. Well, that was fun. Don't you agree? That was fun? Yeah, that was. Next item on our agenda is our common consent portion of our agenda.
Chair Heyer,
Yes, sir.
if you don't mind, I would like to make a motion that we remove these two items listed under common consent. Just remove them from the common consent.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Blair, seconded by Councilmember Lopez to pull them from the common consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Okay, what that means is this is now just a regular agenda item that will be dealt with on its own merits without being on common consent. So what's your pleasure at this point? We had some discussion about this in our work session both tonight and a week ago. And there were some concerns about the, not about the mural or any of the workmanship that was done around that, but some with the process. So, anything you would, we have available, we could table this. We must do that to a date certain, which is a problem, I think, for our staff and the administrative staff. So we could, what was the word you used, Janine?
Extend.
Just extend. So we could make a motion to extend this. That would allow them time to work on the bugs in the ordinance that makes this kind of sticky. So I'll look for a motion.
Can we do it on both items?
I think we can, yeah. We could do that on both items.
Yeah, and I think you also have the option of just doing nothing, and we can just deal with it and bring it back when it's ready. And just pass to the next item on the agenda.
Okay. Is that the pleasure of the council? Okay, all right. That's what we will do then.
But I think you need to, it does require a motion to do that. Move to the next item on the agenda.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a first for me. I will go ahead and make a motion that we move to the next item on the agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Blair, seconded by Councilmember Choburka to move to the next item on the agenda. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Are there any opposed? This is a little bit of new ground we're covering today, learning some new procedures. So thanks for our staff for the help in this. Okay, the next item is the reports from the Planning Commission. Item A is Waste Transfer Station Zone Text Amendment. We have Mr. Montgomery. Welcome.
Chair Heyer, members of the council, what we have before you tonight is a recommendation from the Planning Commission regarding a pending ordinance that was established in June of this year. We'll get this pulled up and be able to use that to discuss the pending ordinance. The pending ordinance is consideration of removing waste transfer stations as a conditional use in the M2 zone. So that is what it's dealing with. It's only dealing with that portion of the ordinance. And this was posted in June of this year. I have a 6-month time frame. It's actually 180 days for the pending ordinance of determining an action of what you should consider. I think one of the key things of why the pending ordinance, and the concern came about because of impacts of operation of an improved transfer station and how it was impacting the neighborhood. In order to get a handle on it, the pending ordinance was created. Why a waste transfer ordinance to begin with? When the county closed the landfill back in the 90s, which was in West Ogden, that signaled the end of landfills within Weber County. There had been several landfills within the city over time frames to dispose of municipal waste, where the Big D Park is, where 31st Street Expressway is. Those had been old landfills. There was a C&D landfill that was west of the 21st Street Pond. And the county at that point had determined that the most appropriate way to handle waste was to create a transfer station. At the time of discussion of the transfer station, one of the key parts that had been discussed was it happening in Ogden City limits. Since we had no regulations regarding how to deal with a waste transfer station, the city developed an ordinance in 1997 to deal with waste transfer stations, the standards we'd have, and the criteria we felt would be important to protect Ogden City, the neighboring properties, and that ordinance was established. What happened, though, was the county located their transfer station outside of Ogden City limits, so we had an ordinance that really hadn't been applicable since that time. Now, just so it's clear what a waste transfer station is, it's where individuals or contracted waste haulers bring municipal waste of all types and dump it. There, that dumped waste is then transported to an appropriate facility, a landfill in this case, and that's where the waste then is taken. The landfills that are most appropriate in terms of what is used in Weber County is in Tooele, and there's other municipalities that take their waste to southern Utah County. At that point, all the municipal waste is dumped in those landfills and is covered, much like the landfill we had in West Ogden. But times have changed, and those landfills are few and far between, and municipalities look at handling the waste by hauling it somewhere else. And so that is where we're at now since we closed the landfills in Weber County. So I think it's important to understand that in our zoning ordinance we have two areas that deal with the municipal waste that's created. One is the waste transfer ordinance. That talks about receiving, processing, and then disposing at another location of the solid waste. We have another ordinance in the zone that talks about recyclable collection centers and processing. The difference in our ordinance, and again, it's important because what we're talking about is Ogden City ordinances, and what they define is that we define recyclable materials in those facilities as items that are brought in, processed, reconstituted with the idea they're going to be reused again. And the ordinance is clear that recyclable materials does not include refuse, which, depending on lots of different definitions out there, refuse is generally overall municipal waste, all types of garbage, things that aren't recycled as well as things that could be recycled. And we make that separation. We say that recycling centers, those facilities are a conditional use in the M2 zone. We're not looking at any changes to those provisions in the ordinance. But this pending ordinance is on waste transfer stations. And while both transfer materials from that site to other locations, either to be disposed of or to be sold and reused, they are not they're not waste transfer stations. Waste transfer is only the general municipal waste that has the non-recyclables. So that's important to make those distinctions, what we're talking about tonight. So when we took a look at the pending ordinance, we looked at the general plan, first of all, for direction. Two statements in the general plan talk about looking at diversifying the city's economic base and then preventing environmentally inappropriate development. Those are broad statements and can have a lot of meaning. And the general plan is meant to have that. There may be some conflicting statements, and there may be statements that are for interpretation. And as we look at then developing our ordinances based on those general plan items and trying to implement them, that becomes the discussion of trying to make sure that what we have as permitted uses in the city will help generate a good, strong economic base, and both are look at protecting the environment, and that environment also means the neighbors. And how do we make all those types of uses work together? That's what the zoning regulations are about, is then setting those standards of how things work together. One of the things the Planning Commission talked about is the balance of growth and then the needs we all have of disposing of municipal waste. We know the projections along the Wasatch Front are for continued growth, and in Weber County, by 2065, we look at a projection of 389,000 people from our present population of 256,000. That growth also produces waste, and so how that is handled is important. The present transfer station in the county operates about 800 tons of municipal waste per day. Their capacity, as they had talked to the Planning Commission, was about 1,200 tons per day without improvements. They felt that with improvements they can increase that capacity and be able to address additional growth. The Commission discussed among themselves the increased demand and the limited abilities of disposing of waste, and how does that take place. We have many different types of recycling facilities, whether it be scrap metal, whether it be the plastics or the types of things. There are various operations within Weber County and Ogden City that handle that, but right now the municipal waste of that being the mixed, both the recyclables and those things that aren't recyclable. The transfer station at Weber County is the only facility that operates and holds that. One of the things we looked at is when you look at all the communities in Weber County, only Ogden City in their ordinance or the county in their ordinance address waste transfer stations, and the county's really is based on a public use, meaning it's owned and operated by the county. They don't really specify waste transfer stations as a specific use. Our ordinance does. And that's where we come into consideration of what is appropriate now. As I mentioned, the ordinance was developed in '97, and so we've had 21 years since that ordinance was developed. Technologies and processes have changed, and how we look at things have also changed. We've seen things take place in terms of course, infill growth, and so many of the vacant lands we had in 1997 are now developed. And some of the considerations we had in the ordinance back then looked at more space and things taking place, developments happening, and people knowing what to expect next to them. I think one of the things that's important, and this was kind of that consideration, is that quality of life around each project and each development. How do different projects become good neighbors to each other? I think that's one of the important considerations the Planning Commission talked about, in realizing there may be some things in the present ordinance that aren't as good in creating better neighbors as could be, again, because of the changes that have happened over the 21 years. There's also discussion among the Planning Commission is, should there be competition? Right now, the county operates the landfill, the transfer station. Should there be competition? Should there be a private opportunity also? And the Commission discussed that back and forth of what they felt were appropriate considerations. As the Commission reviewed this, one of the things I think that was an item brought up and concerned was the fact that the conditional use process back when the ordinance was created is different than the conditional use process today. Back then, anticipating the county's location, the city could, if there was being applied for in the city, could direct locations. They could say no to a certain location as under a conditional use permit process. Changes in state law really don't allow that to happen anymore. What happens now is you look at what can mitigate any impacts to neighbors, but to deny it would not be possible unless it completely cannot mitigate impacts. So the nature of the ordinance has changed in what state law allows a conditional use to be. And as the Planning Commission talked about that, some of their concerns were that with our present ordinance and with properties being developed closer and closer together, it may not be practical to use the same regulations now as we thought of in 1997. What may be more appropriate is to look at the practices and trends and how markets operate, and then at a future point come back to look at, have things changed? Is more competition for transfer stations needed? And so in their recommendation to you, they're recommending a 5-2 vote to approve the pending ordinance, which would remove waste transfer stations as a conditional use in the M2 zone, with the direction also to look at in the future operations and practices and trends. As you look at the pending ordinance, it is only dealing with the land use classification found in the M2 zone. There's still a provision in the ordinance regarding waste transfer stations and standards. The intent was to leave that in place at this point, so that could be a starting point to look at future standards, and rather than reinvent everything, to have that as a base point to look at other things that could happen in the future if the need comes to have more waste transfer stations within the community. So that is the Planning Commission's recommendation to you, and those are the things that the general things they talked about. So any questions you may have of me?
Any questions for Greg?
I have one. I'd like to go back to where the conditional use of today is different than when it was established in 1997.
Okay.
And you mentioned the Planning Commission would be looking at practices and trends and the market conditions. Why didn't we do that and include this in the ordinance that we're looking at tonight? So that would be part of the package that we would have.
Well, I think one of the things the Planning Commission looked at is it's a broader issue and more time-consuming than what we had in place. And to really get an understanding of what other people are doing, we just needed more time. And that, again, the way the conditional use were written to begin with was the fact that it had a lot of flexibility, a lot of ability for certain locations, if it was felt this is really not the appropriate location, to deny the conditional use. That doesn't take place anymore. conditional uses are only looked at now by state law as trying to mitigate any impacts. And I think there's some of the impacts that we perceived back then when we had more space between properties and undeveloped areas that we don't have nowadays. We have a lot of infills taking place, and neighbors are closer together.
So we're looking at a time element on this one?
We haven't set a time element. We will take a wait and see attitude on it and see, are there things that may be coming in the future? Are there demands, market demands, needs? Again, the county waste transfer station is the facility now operating and taking care of the waste transfer, and they have the capacity and the ability to look at some future growth too.
But this ordinance tonight, we're not under any time limit then, are
Correct.
we?
I'd probably put out that, a petition can always take place to ask for that to be reinstated. But our comment at this point is we feel it's appropriate to remove it as a conditional use at this point.
I have a question for you. Well, maybe it's not as much of a question as it is a kind of a recollection. I was on the planning commission when this first came to be, when the landfill was closed, and Weber County actually asked us to look at this, if I remember right.
Correct.
And I think it was my observation that the county was really the only one interested in doing this, and we had some say as to where it would be.
Correct.
Now, if I remember right, there weren't very many locations we thought were appropriate, but they were M2.
Correct.
So when we put the ordinance in place in the first place, yes, it was in an M2 zone, but we had identified some very few locations that it would be allowed.
Correct.
Because of the types of accessory uses or, the impacts it would have. I think that's an important thing. Plus, then with the conditional use, the way that changed, it makes it more difficult even yet to govern a thing like this. I guess I could foresee at some point if someone had a good use and a good location, and they could come in and make a proposal to do this, and it would be looked at, and maybe there would be a whole brand new zone made for this purpose. That's kind of what I would see.
One of the things that has happened since then is the conditional overlay zone.
Yeah.
And you've seen that applied now, that if
Right.
it were not for this specific use, this specific location, it wouldn't be zoned that way. I mean, there are other new tools out there that we didn't have or consider back then.
Any other questions for Greg?
I do have one question, Greg, and I think we've talked about this, but I just want to make it clear. Is there any impact on a currently allowed business that's happening in any way?
So the use or the consideration of this tonight, if the use has been legally approved and was one of these uses, they would have a right to continue. They'd be non-conforming. This action would not eliminate or make null any existing legal uses. So I think that's important to understand, that if they have the legal approval and met all the conditions, this doesn't alter that they can operate. I think the other question comes in, there may be a question, was there a pending approval? Again, your consideration tonight will not affect any pending thing. That's a whole different process of has something been pending. So yours is only looking at from today on. If an application is made, it would not be considered, because if you approve the Planning Commission's recommendation, it would not be use allowed. But anything that was legally approved prior to that is allowed to continue. In our opinion, no, there hasn't been.
Any more questions for Greg?
Just as a clarification, we're looking at recyclable
No.
waste now, or are we looking at being a waste station?
So we're only considering waste transfer stations. Recycling, we're not, it's a use allowed. So
We're
not
talking the
about-
green can versus the blue can.
Yeah. This is the green can.
Saying that is We're looking at M2 zones, is that correct?
Yeah, the only place waste transfer stations are listed as a use to be considered is in the M2 zones as a conditional use.
Where are they located, Greg, basically?
Well, the M2 zones are found basically, the majority of them are west of the railroad tracks. There are other uses there too. So West Ogden, of course, has residential areas in it. But you're generally talking about west of the rail tracks. There is some M2 along 31st Street, Pacific Avenue, those areas also.
And a quick clarification on that, Councilmember Stevens. In your packet materials, there's a map that Glenn Simons was kind enough to prepare for us that highlights all of the M2 zones, just so that you can know where those are at in the city as well.
I appreciate that.
Okay, any more questions for Mr. Montgomery? Okay, thank you. All right, we would like to receive public input on this proposal. If you'd like to speak to the council regarding this proposal, please come to the dais or to the podium and give us your name for the record, and limit your comments to 3 minutes, please. Also, there's a lot of you. If it starts to become redundant, it's not important that we hear a lot of the same thing over and over again. But if you feel like you have to say it, then you have your 3 minutes. But okay,
all
go
right,
ahead.
I'll try and be concise. My name is Marie Durant. I'm counsel for Recycled Earth, and I appreciate the opportunity to be able to talk to all of you tonight as you're considering this important issue. We sent you some information. I hope you've all had a chance to look at it. The key points that we want you to consider tonight is that removing the option for waste transfer in the M2 zone will be bad for Ogden City residents and businesses, because it will cause confusion, as it already has, especially for Recycled Earth, and it also will limit the city in future decisions and possibly how they appear as an attractive place for businesses to locate and the type of services that they offer to modern businesses who are very interested in recycling, reducing waste, and affordable waste practices. We do have a disagreement with some of the things that were presented to you just now. Recycled Earth does have a pending application before the city for a transfer station. They have submitted it in 2014. There's been several actions taken on that application, as we outlined in the information that we provided. And Recycled Earth has made significant investments and taken numerous actions based on their reliance on this application and some of the approvals that have gone through the city. So that, I think, is some important background, even though it is a separate issue. If recognized as a pending application, they will proceed with that. But as you can see, there's some disagreement, there's some confusion over the stance and the situation for that. As currently constituted, there are some confusion within the city's ordinances. And again, those ordinances are going to be left in place. The only thing that's been taken away is the opportunity for the conditional use permit. And removing transfer stations as a conditional use could support some of the problematic interpretations of the law and recycling and waste that we're concerned about. Recycling doesn't just come in a nice clean box and you pack it away and recycle it. It comes in, it's waste, and you have to sort through it. And there's different interpretations of what waste is, including some differences between state law and the city definitions for waste, solid waste, refuse, those type of things. As the law currently stands, transfer stations wishing to locate in Ogden will be could be evaluated on an individual basis under a conditional use permit. There are some options if you do need to deny them. It's not a completely ruled out. And finally, the vote tonight appears to be based on this individual situation of Recycled Earth. There were some unfortunate complaints over the spring, but that was an isolated and temporary problem. This proposal is a permanent solution to this temporary problem, which is well on its way to being resolved. I'd like to take a bit more time, but I'll
I'm
see.
I'm sorry, the 3 minutes have
I understood
expired.
we got 5 minutes. Was I incorrect?
That was incorrect. Yeah.
Okay.
It was at one point, but it's no longer. It's 5.
Okay.
It's 3, I mean. Thank you, Mrs. Durant.
I'm happy to answer any questions if anyone has any.
Is there anyone else? Please come forward, please.
My name is Ed Mackyer. For 20 years now, I've been composting on my property. And I bought my first composters from Ogden City. And I weighed one month. I figured it was about 8 pounds of wet garbage that I could be throwing out, but that I was putting in the composters. That's coffee, chocolates, just things
Don't
that
throw
are...
away chocolate.
No, I know, but just chocolate.
I'm just kidding.
Okay, yeah,
Sorry,
that's
go
right.
ahead.
That's right. Yeah, he took 2 minutes away from me. So I think that there is a possibility of educating the public to compost. I think it would be also pretty nice, the fact is that you would have less waste to bring to the dumps. And I think it would be interesting to study it, the composting idea. Now, we do compost here at the green dump, which is amazing. It's an amazing facility. But I'm talking about the household stuff. So that's all I have to say. I think it would be carbon efficient. We would not be spending the amount of money to truck wet material to the transfer station, and we might be able to condense the volume and solve the problem, maybe temporarily, until we can get another one.
Thank you. Anyone else?
David Rawson, 3027 Midland, and my time starts. This is obviously a big deal to me, but this is not a big deal specifically to my current operation. It's the future of our community and the future of the services that it needs to be provided. The all-or-nothing approach of the zoning change is unnecessary and will rob the city of important flexibility that it will need to address the needs of Ogden's residents and businesses. What would happen if for some reason Weber County decides not to do it? What if they don't want Ogden City's waste? What would happen if the community wants options, waste to energy, more waste recycling? What if other options through private investment would lower the costs? I'll give you 4 parts of the waste. We have collection, we have transfer, we have trucking, and we have landfill. It's 4 costs. What is the most expensive part of that? It's trucking. Transfer is less than 10%. So we're arguing about transfer. That's not the issue. It's how we get it to the landfill and who negotiates with the landfill. That's what it's about. The collection is intricate into whoever is the collector, whether it's Waste Management, Red Public Services, or Ogden City. Transfer is just less than 10%. So we've got to be prepared for the future. They are intricately connected, recycling and transfer of waste. It's all a waste stream. We can put it in a different can and call it something different, but it's garbage that comes from businesses and households. Now, we want to encourage better programs. I sure wish Weber County's program would have been a little better, but they stopped the program completely. Just stopped. What happened? The cost got too expensive. It was too messy, and they didn't have a place to take it, so they stopped the program. We don't want that. It was an emergency situation. We were trying to prolong the program for recycling in our community. It was Weber County's problem. We took that problem. We wanted that problem. We encouraged that problem. We wanted contracts to help us support that program. We still don't have contracts. We have letters of intent from Ogden alone, not Weber County. We put a lot into this, our heart and soul's in this. We've been here before discussing this. We just want the support to know that as a community, we need waste transfer. It has to be integral to the waste remediation of our community. It's part of our growth. It has to happen. And that's all I would say.
Thank you, Mr. Rawson. Please don't applaud this. During ceremonial things, it's okay, but during these kind of things, it's inappropriate. So please hold your applause. Next.
I'm Paul Wheelwright from Wheelwright Lumber. We share the south fence line with the recycled earth. Before I start complaining, I want to thank Ogden City for putting a moratorium down last June on the transfer station in Ogden and stopping recycled earth from illegally accepting raw garbage into their facility. I'd like to thank the Planning Commission for voting and recommending the City Council take the measure to remove this from the M2 zoning. Recycled earth has operated in our business area for a number of years with little or no monitoring from the city, the county, or the state. It seems like if problems would continually arise, we'd report them, and maybe somebody might show up and take a look at it, and then things would go back to the way they were. Their operation was always a nuisance, blowing garage, dust on our cars, dust that we're breathing in our lungs, and the occasional smells. But that all changed last November. Last November, they went from being a nuisance to creating a catastrophic environment out there in our business community. Recycled Earth decided to start accepting raw garbage. Now, when I say raw garbage, I mean restaurant waste, school waste, grocery store waste, any kind of waste. It was coming there, and it would sit. It would sit and stew, and the smell was beyond nauseating. The smell would permeate our business. Where you talk about the green can and the blue can, imagine sitting at your desk next to a green can versus a blue can. That's what we were dealing with out there. Before long, the seagulls showed up, and I'm not talking a few birds. Dave has told me he can't believe I started this all over a few birds. We were talking birds of biblical proportion. I had birds pooping on my customers, pooping on my employees, on my inventory. It was just so frustrating. I'm going to run out of time. It really comes down to if you care nothing about the rest of the businesses out there, but I think you do. But this isn't a direct line of flight to the Ogden Airport. And we would stand out there and watch the seagulls in the afternoon and the planes flying by and nearly missing them. And I'm sure you're all aware that we did have a bird strike out there. I never reported that to the FAA because I knew Ogden City was moving to get another commercial carrier. Wheelwright Lumber has been an Ogden company since 1908. We employ between 75 and 90 workers. We have taxable sales in excess of $60 million in 2018. We encourage the Ogden City Council to vote to remove this ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. Wheelwright. Is there anyone else?
My name is Brandon Hossley. I'm the fleet manager for Recycled Earth. I've worked with David in the recycling off and on for about 10 years now. And I just want to remind the council that when Weber County dropped the recycling and just wanted to take all that and throw it in the landfill, we stepped up and we took that and we did what we could with it to try to keep it out of the landfill. Now, as a result, we got overwhelmed. And we got overwhelmed with our trucking, but I can assure you that that never sat. It never sat. We had a bird problem. We took care of the bird problem. And as far as, breathing in dust and all this other thing, there's a lot of other businesses out here in Ogden City that create dust. And I think the biggest thing that we need to point out is that for the future, recycling is very important. And it's not as easy as blue can and green can, because I can tell you right now, I see a lot of the stuff that comes through in your green can that belongs in the other can. People aren't doing their job, so that means we have to do it. And that creates waste, and that waste has to be dealt with, and we're dealing with that waste. So I would just like to remind you that we are out for the good of the people. We're for the good of society as far as having a place for that to go. We're 2 months away from having our waste to energy program take place, where the waste will actually go into a shredder and it'll be taken somewhere and burned for energy. So we're doing the right thing, and I just want to point that out.
Thank you, Mr. Hosley. Is there anyone else?
Stephen Wheelwright with Wheelwright Lumber. And a few of the issues I've got already being taken is I have documented proof of garbage sitting for long periods of time out here, and I would like to give these pictures to the council. Big issue that we've got is with vermin. If you have your Utah Administrative Code, they're talking about how you can run a waste transfer station. One of them is be free of potential rat harbage and provide effective means to control rodents, insects, birds, and other vermin. We have had a big problem. If you probably put on a night vision scope out, you could see the ground move at night. I would say that would still probably be true to this day. This is back in May 25th. It is not recyclable material. It's garbage.
Can we see those pictures there higher?
Right. Can you
Here is May 14th. Same thing, garbage. You'll see in these pictures here, I've circled where we get birds. You have trucks coming in that are not recycled trucks. He was dumping this stuff without the proper permit. Now imagine if Wheelwright Lumber said, hey, we decided we want to sell some beer because we can make some money out of it, but don't worry about a permit. We would be fined, shut down, maybe even jailed. But for some reason, if you throw recycled in the front name off of that, you can get away with this stuff. We have dealt with very, very bad stench going on here. When they bring these trucks in, it covers all of Midland with garbage on here. There is quite a few other issues where we are not be adequately screened to prevent blowing or litter and provide effective means to control litter. There is no screening. This is as of today. I took this picture today. You see the garbage that's spread around here. We pick up wind, it throws it all over the place. The worst thing is the stink. The bugs, the birds, the rats, the varmint. The plane's heading over there, like we say with bird strike. It's not for this area. If any of you people had a house or had a business, you would be in my spot right now too, complaining. It hurts our business. Our customers complain off of that. This was never designed to do it. He was doing it illegally. Thank you for your time. I would like to give you this Utah Administrative Code, plus with this stuff here to show what is going on.
Thank you, Mr. Wheelwright. Would you like these photos back by chance?
Oh, no, thank you.
Okay, all right. Anyone else? If you would like to speak, you can kind of make your way towards the front and it'll make the transitions a little quicker.
Dusty DeMille. I've been in the construction industry for 20 years, and I can assure you that that is a concern for the people in the construction industry. Where do we put waste? How can we do it effectively, efficiently, and with a environmentally conscious mind? I've heard what the wheelwrights have said, and I understand that being directly next to a facility would be a concern. But as we look at the greater good and understand that private industry is a good thing, a private party trying to give us another solution with our trash is a good thing in our industry, and at the same time it's not a pretty thing to deal with, and there's not a lot of people that are willing to do it, but it is a process. And my experience with Mr. Rawson running Recycled Earth is he's a visionary person of high character, and I've seen him work through some situations that were very difficult. He's got a great work ethic, he's a smart guy, and he will figure this out. From what I understood so far is that some of that stuff that's problematic for the birds can go indoors. I mean, there are solutions that other cities in this country are doing. I mean, we're generating garbage here in Ogden City, but we don't want to look at it, we don't want to deal with it. And there is a mixture between recycling and transfer station. I mean, those two go together as you sift through garbage, and other big cities have this, and they've figured it out. And rather than wait until we find out that Weber County might not be able to be sufficient for our needs, and then start over with maybe a private party, Mr. Rawson's he's not all the way there, but he's halfway there, and he's figuring it out, and he's making the financial investment to make this a cleaner, viable solution for transfer and recycling. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Amy Urbina, and before I begin, I want to thank Recycled Earth for actually coming here. You guys are awesome. The future here. I really value Recycled Earth and what they're doing in reducing food waste, because as we know, when food gets taken to landfill, it creates methane, and methane is adding to, along with the emissions that we have a problem with, but then add on to our air quality as well. So when they're taking the recyclables, rather than taking it to the landfill, they're sorting throughout all of these materials in order to ensure that the future also has a livable planet while considering waste, food waste, and all these other measures that go into sorting and recycling and landfill as a whole. So really, I'm very grateful, and I would like to encourage everyone to consider what Recycled Earth is saying in trying to sort both the landfill and recyclables, and I do value what they're doing for us, the future generation, who will also have to deal with these impacts when it comes to landfill. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
My name is Hal Wheelwright. My grandfather started Wheelwright Lumber Company in 1908 up on Quincy Avenue between 24th and 25th Street. We operated there until the early 2000s when it became impossible for us to continue because our business had grown. The town had grown around our business when it was opened. It was on the outskirts. We moved out to Midland, thinking that we were in a good industrial area that would be beneficial to our business. Never in the world did we imagine that there would be a garbage dump placed next door to us. We are a fifth-generation company in this city. Our sales are one of the largest for a single lumberyard operation in the state of Utah. In fact, I'd have to ask Paul, we are very close to the top nationally for a single store operation. This business has been very detrimental to us. We need to keep the M2 zoning to industries, to light manufacturing, and to businesses, not to become a garbage dump. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wheelwright. Anyone else?
Garth Hubbard. First, I'd just like to say that the Planning Commission, I believe, is basing their decision on some inaccuracies, and I would ask the council to fully explore those and postpone any decision until you fully understand all the issues at hand. Second of all, the complaints are one single customer. I don't hear anything from anyone else. And as a pilot, I fly that all the time, and I'm telling you, the bird strike is ridiculous. I drive by there, there every few days. I've visited Wheelwrights. I've never experienced the things that they're explaining. So I encourage you to go by and look at it. There's a nice berm, there's trees. Mr. Rawson has pretty much done everything he's been asked to do in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, and last point, private enterprise will almost without fail exceed government operations in terms of efficiency and benefit. There's a lot of explanations for that, but I think most of you understand that as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bruce Cragen, I'm one of the co-owners of Larry's Pools. It's not just wheelwrights. We are kitty corner from the Rawsons, so it's not just wheelwrights that have these issues. It's virtually everybody in that industrial area. What the wheelwrights have said, I agree with. I don't want to be redundant, but everything they've said, we've experienced exactly the same way. The other thing, let's not kid ourselves. This is about making money. It's cloaked in the good works of recycling, but this is about making money. This is a business thing. And when it starts affecting other people's business, I don't think it's right. There's not even any need for it. By the city's own numbers, the transfer station now is not even near capacity. So I don't understand why this is even coming up. Thanks.
Thanks, Mr. Cragen. Anyone else?
Hello, members of the council. My name is Mark France. I am a longtime multi-generation resident of the area, but in addition to that, I'm also a registered professional engineer. Have been working in the solid waste industry for over 25 years, and I'm currently employed by Waste Management of Utah, and I manage the post-collections operations in Utah. My concern with this is, and I recognize that there have been some difficulties and problems with one facility. I think the owner of that facility has recognized that as well. And honestly, it's not unusual in the industry to have opposition to our operations. But the thing that we've been able to determine as the largest environmental services company in the nation is that the concerns are mitigatable. We placed a transfer station right downtown, one of the most recent ones that I was involved in building, right downtown, major municipal area, adjacent to a river. We've mitigated all the odor, we've mitigated queuing issues, traffic flow issues, vermin, rodent issues, and have been able to successfully operate that free of complaints. And it was actually a $27 million project that combined a MRF, which is a recycling facility, with the transfer station that was existing and in some disrepair. By doing that, we were able to get the synergies of having them both. And honestly, it's not even called a transfer station anymore. The campus is considered an eco-center. And so that brings up another concern that I have with the ordinance. Recognizing that one business has had some issues that can be mitigated, that need to be mitigated, that they have admitted need to be mitigated. To use that as a means to change an entire ordinance and eliminate the entire business practice from your community seems like overkill and seems somewhat short-sighted. The conditional use process allows you to let these things operate within your city, but also allows you to have control, place conditions on that operation. And so to eliminate that as an option because you've struggled with one business doesn't make a lot of sense. And then realizing I'm out of time, I just also want to mention the competition aspect. We collect waste, as you know, within your municipality, both commercial and residential, and surrounding areas, and we need a place to take that. If, as was mentioned, if there are four things that need to be done: collection, transfer, haul, and landfill. If any one of those four have a monopoly, they can raise your prices, and you'll see that. And competition is good. Recycled Earth is a good competitor. Weber County is a good competitor. We're a good competitor in the business. And to eliminate any of those.
Mr. France, you've expired, I believe.
I have a few seconds
left.
left.
Oh, never mind then. I'm sorry. If you want a few more seconds, I cut you off. I'm sorry.
Excuse me. So I just wanted to say that the ability to compete makes us all stronger, and to eliminate this as an option for Ogden City residents and put all your eggs in one basket by saying, okay, we're just not going to do this at all, seems short-sighted and not sustainable as well. So.
Okay. Thank you. Mine must have. Sorry. I'm an error. Yes, sir.
Hello, I'm Scott Neely. I'm the property owner on the north side of Recycled Earth. You know, Paul's up here talking because it's from the heart, right? He's affected by it. I'm up here to tell my story because I'm affected by it. These other guys are affected by money, right? Waste Management's here because they dump there. I'm affected by it because my customers walk through garbage. And no matter what they do next to me, it's going to blow onto my front steps. You come to buy a product from me, you're walking through it. You get out of your car, it hits you in the face with a smell. You can't get around it. You know, we're in the manufacturing area of Ogden, and we really enjoy it in Ogden. We've been there since 1993, paying our taxes, generating employees that create families in Ogden. And how are we going to do that if you get out of your door and the wrenchy smell hits you in the face? How do you fly customers into Ogden Airport over a garbage dump? Pretty embarrassing. How do you drive them down the road to show them a facility that you've built for the last 25 years because you're proud of it in the Ogden Industrial Park and go past the dump? I'm not up here talking because I'm affected by money. It's a dream of mine. And that's what I've done for the last 25 years. Is there a better area for it? Absolutely. It's not Ogden City. It just isn't. Ogden's not a big area. It's a tight niche area. Everybody loves it here. Everyone loves the outdoors. I'm all for recycling. You should go down and see how they do it because I'm next door. I watch them. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Neely. Anyone else?
My name is Travis Wallace. This was kind of interesting to me in listening to this. I actually don't have a dog in this. I don't own any property around there. I don't have anything in that. I will say this though. I did have the privilege and to before Recycled Earth purchase that ground to help do some of the due diligence on that property. My profession actually is I'm in the real estate industry. I've been in it for a little over 20 years. I actually did go with Mr. Rawson back east. We toured 6 different facilities before this was ever put in. And I wish, and I honestly, I feel for the neighbors and understanding. As somebody who has a hard time with messes, I totally understand that would probably be a hard thing for me to deal with as well. However, if I could take all of you guys back and see those facilities that are back east and understand, when we understand that we are going to create the waste, there's no changing that. It's going to happen. Ogden City will create it. The county will create it. Everybody will create this. There has to be a means of getting rid of that. That's not going to change. But if you could see those facilities, they were right down, just like what was spoken about by the gentleman from Waste Management. They were literally right downtown, some of them. And you couldn't, the smell, there was no smell. I was amazed at the cleanliness of it. And I know that they can get to that point. The problem is just like everything else, it takes money and it takes time. The growth from where he was, has it been 8 years ago now? 9 years? 9 years ago now. to today, it's amazing that far. And I'm sure it's not where, you know, the neighbors would like, but I promise you there are mitigating factors that can be done and taken care of. I wish I could, if I had enough money, I'd take you all over there and let you watch it. If you one day out there, you would not think like that. So it is possible. Know that. I'll say it that.
Thank you.
Hi, Kristen Neely. I have the property right along the property line with them. I think we're losing focus. This is not a recyclable issue. This is a garbage issue. So there's two separate things on the table. We are in the Ogden City Industrial Park, and it is gorgeous, and all the properties around us are gorgeous, and he has made a huge effort the last few months because Ogden City's held him to the fire. He still hasn't been able to follow all the rules that he was required to do 10 years ago, and he's working on that. If you think you're going to be able to get a transfer station there and have him start and follow every rule, go back and look at history. It's about accountability, and he's only doing what he's supposed to right now because he's being held to the fire. But it's two separate issues. This isn't recyclables. This is transfer station. The M2 zone and where we are is not for a transfer station. It's not designed for it. It's beautiful. We have high-end buildings there, and we've spent a lot of money to keep it nice and to keep it high-end. And everyone around us is the same way. And they have done. They have been out to the site, and they did see all the problems that happened when the garbage came in. And so those problems went away, though, when the garbage went away. So it's not just like, oh, we did a couple things. He's still working on his trees. He's still working on his fence. He's still working on all these things. He's had his dates extended again. I had a tree die, and I couldn't get my escrow out of Ogden City. He's short 50 trees and has no escrow held in Ogden City. So the standard needs to be raised, but we need to remember this is about a transfer station. This is not about recyclables. And if he really wanted a transfer station 10 years ago, he should have come straight to you guys and got the permit, and we wouldn't be here today. So take this ordinance and do the right thing, and if somebody wants to put a transfer station in the Ogden City Industrial Park or an M2 zone in Ogden City, let them work for it. Let them follow the rules every step of the way, not work backward. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Neely. Anyone else?
My name is Amy Rawson. Thank you for the opportunity to address you. I have so many things to say, so little time. Wish we'd been invited to present to you during a work session prior to tonight's vote. I think the inflammatory and inaccurate statements made by others have allowed you to form an opinion and prejudice regarding the incidents that have occurred. Hopefully your minds have not already been made up in regard to being completely informed. The mitigating factors happened in June. You're listening to inflammatory statements that have been resolved. We have a beautiful facility. We have more beautification on the front of our facility than any of our neighbors. And we want to provide a good service and have a beautiful facility. I don't want to take my time to recount the history that's occurred leading up to these incidents. Hopefully you're aware of the history. I think a few points are important to remind you of. We thought we were providing a service in response to an emergency situation at Weber County as they dropped their program with virtually no notice. Steps were done out of order. We've been given our best faith efforts to get the buildings and infrastructure in place that would eliminate problems. As soon as possible. Steps of these processes were out of our control, and delayed paperwork and approval of timing from the city have definitely not helped. This complicated situation, we believe, will be improved, could have been improved with communication, and we would have avoided the situation we now find ourselves in. This emergency situation was never part of our master plan. Our master plan was to create a beautiful facility and have buildings to provide these services in. We're close to completing at least one of these structures and infrastructure that will make sure there are no negative impacts on our neighbors and providing in the future these opportunities for service. We've been working with Ogden City since 2014. All required fees have been paid. We continue to invest and financially obligate ourselves to provide a service based on that premise and understanding. And now, since we have all come to realize that there is confusion surrounding this issue, there's been a mad dash effort to define what waste transfer and recycling actually is so that we can operate without a conflict of the services agreed to by Ogden City and regulations with the state of Utah. We need to stop arguing over terms and instead look for the best options for handling the waste that's generated in our community. You've heard from Greg Montgomery that during his presentation, that this ordinance will eliminate options. And I feel like we've been accused of being greedy and making a quick buck. I guarantee you this is not an easy way to make a quick buck. And handling waste is a major undertaking. It's as important as sewer and water. With many moving parts, it's a difficult thing to do, probably why the county has had 4 different directors in the amount of time that we've been in business. You can't hope someone else will take care of this problem. No one really wants to think about their sewer, but everyone's really happy that it's there. It's the same thing with waste and recycling. One other note is the Neelys. I find it very difficult to believe that they find waste so offensive since they just went into the dumpster business. I think they've probably decided that it's a valuable service that people can offer.
Thank you. Anyone else? I think you're premature. I know why you're here.
I'm going to just say a few things.
About recycling?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. My name's Tracy White, and I'm here for a different reason, as you said. But just as you can kind of tell by my accent, I'm from New Zealand, and I just we are very, very green there. Our waste, our recycling bins are the same size as your normal garbage cans, but then our garbage cans are like half the size. And to say, just to hear some of the arguments about recycling, I think it is so important. Like, I know the issues with the birds and all the trash is like not what you guys want to see, especially for your businesses and your customers. But we have to find a way to make recycling an important part of the community. We can't just get rid of it. It's part of our city. It's part of the future. It's necessary that not only we have these, but we also educate our schools, our children, that this is something that needs to just be more around. And to say it should be gotten rid of, that's not a feasible solution for the future. So if we can find a better location, or if we can improve their business practice or how they retain all of their garbage, I think we can make it work for both of them, and we can't just like abolish one and just say that's all. But I'm really here to say thank you for the park that we were given, and this is it. So thank you. That's all I have to say.
Her name is Tracy White, for the record, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Thanks, Tracy. She petitioned for a park earlier in the year, and she got it. So that's what that was about.
Are those ours?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think they're probably Monty's.
Good evening. My name is Brenda Wheelwright, 3127 Midland Drive. I believe that the Ogden Industrial Park is not the place for a transfer station. Weber County already has a transfer station with extra capacity. I suggest that you think about making the transfer station a permitted use rather than a conditional use. You've heard from surrounding businesses, and it's not just the ones that have shown up here tonight. It's more businesses that have had difficulty dealing with recycled earth and when they started to accept commercial commingled waste. The smell, the birds. Actually, there was a reported bird strike. If you review the Planning Commission documents, it's documented in there. Allegiant Airlines reported that. So it's just a host of problems. It's been very difficult to deal with November through June. It has improved thanks to the Planning Commission and their list of 15 conditions that they're supposed to follow. Some of the timelines have been extended. Hopefully they can meet those timelines. But I just think that these surrounding businesses, they're good businesses. You want to keep them in Ogden City. They employ a lot of people. They generate substantial sales tax and property tax. They're good businesses. They have options. They do have options. They don't want to leave, but I'm sure other cities or other counties would love to have them there. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
My name is Sean Allen. I own a business that's across the street from Wheelwright and from Recycled Earth. And I guess what I'm having a problem with is, you know, they're talking about trash versus recycled. I mean, I don't have a problem with the recycled part, but the trash is bringing in a lot of birds. I mean, where you have poop and stuff all over all of our product. I mean, and we're probably probably 2-3 blocks away. But the thing that's really got me bothered is if you guys go ahead and say that it's okay for them to go ahead and start bringing in this waste, where's it going to stop? I mean, I pay property taxes. I'm just like the guy that came up before. This is my dream, what I do. And I've put every penny that I've earned, I've worked at it for a long time, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into it. And I hate to see my property values go down and I lose my business, because where does it stop? I mean, once we bring in the solid waste, what's going to be next? I mean, are we going to start to, bring waste in and stuff like that? And it's a concern, because I've got a lot of money invested into my property, and I have no problem with the recycled part. But where they start to bring in a transfer station, I just don't think it belongs where we're at. I mean, it's manufacturing. It's not a landfill. It's for manufacturing. I mean, there's a reason why it's an M zone. And, that's basically all I have to say about it, is just let's make sure that we're talking about the same thing, recycled versus the actual waste. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else? Now's your last chance. Okay. Let's go ahead and discuss and resolve this. What's your pleasure?
I have one question, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Councilmember Stevens.
Where does compost fall into this ordinance? Maybe we have Greg address that.
Sure. Mr. Montgomery, can you answer that question?
Composting is a completely different process, and so it would not be affected by this ordinance.
So you can still have compost throughout the city then?
Correct.
Any other questions before we resolve this?
Sure. Hi, I have a question. One of the things that I'm sorry, I wrote the name down. The attorney, the council has said that they have a pending application in since 2014. Can somebody?
Murray Durant.
Mr. Stratford could answer that question.
Yeah, so Mr. Montgomery expressed his perspective that there are no pending applications. She expressed her perspective that there are pending applications. That issue, whether there are or are not pending applications, is not directly relevant to what your decision is here. If there is a pending application that is a complete application, then Utah law provides how those are to be dealt with, and your decision here tonight would not affect that one way or the other. If there's not a complete application in pending before the city, then then tonight would affect essentially the ability of someone to file a new application, and that's really all you're deciding: is does Ogden City want to allow new applications starting from June 5th of this year going forward for a waste transfer station as a conditional use or not. If there has to be some argument or fight over what happened before June 5th, that is a different issue.
So I appreciate that explanation. I am personally inclined to, what I'm hearing is inclined to favor the businesses that have come and spoke. But I still would like to hear more about this application, and I just simply dismiss it by it's not relevant to our vote today. So can someone address that, please?
Council member, the reason that item should not be discussed is because if there are differences of opinion that need to be developed through facts, this is not the place to do that. If those cannot be resolved, facts are resolved in front of courts, not in front of you for purposes of determining what the people's legal rights are or are not. So with all due respect, the time and the place is not here to have that discussion.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Sure. I have another quick question. So I'm understanding that when Recycled Earth, if I remember back when they started, there was issues regarding queuing and all of those kind of, with the trucks and how much distance and all of that, if I'm remembering correctly. Are there differences in waste transfer stations versus recycled station or recycled areas, I guess, with queuing and the trucks and the amount of trucks and the traffic and...
And let me add to that question before you start.
Okay.
If my recollection was when they first came in for their conditional use, they were a concrete crushing company. If I could be wrong, maybe it's a different company out there, but I think it was there, wasn't it? Was that the same?
Yeah, so their first conditional use in 2010 was for a C&D site.
For what?
Construction and debris. So they're taking demolition products and go through that and then reuse them, ship them to different places. So that was the 2010 application. Now I went blank on your other part. Queuing, oh, okay, yes. So from 2010 to 2014, they received 3 different amendments to their first conditional use permit to do expansions and do different items. They had discussed that they wanted to consider a transfer station, and there was an ordinance, transfer station ordinance, that had talked about queuing. And so they had petitioned to change that regulation, and so you considered... Sorry,
can someone say what is queuing?
Lining up,
Stacking of the
putting them
cars.
behind each other.
Lining the trucks up.
Stacking behind each other.
Okay.
Yeah. So there was a certain distance that had been reviewed. You, as a council, approved revising that ordinance to lessen that distance. And that's all that you had looked at, was just that one specific regulation. There are different standards for recycling centers than for waste transfer stations. They have a whole set of different standards.
Well, we have him. I'm sorry, there is not.
I have one. Brenda Wheelwright brought up that we should have this a permitted use and not a conditional use. Address that? Why that?
I think that's part of our discussion. There's a lot of things that have been brought to light tonight by people that were in favor as well as people that were opposed. And I think even Mr. Montgomery kind of brought this to light also, that if this is a use that the city wants to do, it needs to have a standard for it, and it needs to put together a solid regulation or an ordinance that would proactively regulate this use. And in my mind, that even would necessitate almost either a separate ordinance or a conditional overlay to make this use applicable. When the Planning Commission looked at a waste transfer station back in '97, there were very strict criteria as to where it would go, so it wouldn't have adverse effects on neighboring uses, whether they be residential or business uses. Those locations that were identified at that time just happened to be in the manufacturing zone, and so that's why it was written the way it was, if my recollection. If we were to look at this in the future, I think that's what we should do, is look at it from what standard is there that would mitigate all of these concerns that these businesses have brought forward that are adjacent. I think it would be careless to ignore this and just let it go, because there are too many businesses that are adjacent that are negatively affected. And this would not have been something that the city would have done with the county, because the location is just not right. I don't question the motive of the Rossens. I don't question their integrity or even their ability. I just think that this is just a bad use in a bad place. Maybe it's not even a bad use, it's just a bad location. That's my view from what I can tell.
So the Planning Commission will bring forward other?
They could, if there was a petition, I think is what I heard in the work session. They would wait to see if there was a petition that was brought forward. Is that accurate?
Well, really, there'd be two different ways. One is as we go through time and take a look at demands, we could initiate on our own new standards, looking at that, saying, yeah, there is a reason for that, or someone could petition to make a change. So either one could take place.
I see.
So when did this went from a recycling business and the concrete that started to accepting waste? How does that work in the conditional permit? And you said that they came to the Planning Commission, got different conditional permits. Was that a conditional use permit granted by the Planning Commission so that this business could start taking waste?
No. So, yeah, what the Planning Commission had approved, and I think there's been 5 different amendments to the original conditional use permit. It started as a C&D, construction debris, accepting that. And then there were some requests to do some buildings, to put some scales in. Then there was
what?
Buildings and then weighing scales. So there's been materials brought in on truck, they weigh it.
Okay.
So there were those amendments that took place. There were, most recently, to clarify that the other recycled materials could take place, both in August of this year and then in November of this year. 2 conditional use permits were amended so that the recycling materials could be accepted. And then timeframes for improvements were established, and then amendments were made on those timeframes in November.
So when you say those recycled materials, is that when waste comes into the picture?
In the city's point of view, waste has never been part of the picture.
Again, if I could clarify, Councilmember, and jump in here.
Yes.
So Mr. Montgomery has described the different conditional use permits that have been issued by the Planning Commission. For him to go beyond that gets us back into that whole fact scenario about what other kinds of things they believe they might have. But so he can certainly describe the things that were issued because those are documents that the Planning Commission issued. But beyond that, again, we're going to...
Thank you, Mr. Trafford. So one quick question. Were we briefed about these issues that can be discussed here today? Has the council been briefed? I can't remember hearing about these. And I understand and I will respect the counsel from our attorney not to push these questions, but I can, how can I make an informed decision if I don't know all the facts? So you don't have to answer that question, Mr. Montgomery. I'm just kind of voicing my opinion here. So I may be abstaining from voting, Chair Heyer. I've never done that, so I don't know how it works, but just for the record. Okay.
I was just curious, and this is because I'm new. I just have a question about, so he said that there was a possibility to look into this issue further, because the Planning Commission was saying just sometime in the future they'll look into it or something, and then that somebody else could petition from outside to look into how we could develop the ordinance that would provide this. Is there another mechanism where we could say, I think this is a really important thing to look into and we should proceed? I mean, is there a way that we could
sponsor, we could make a council-sponsored initiative to have this looked into.
I'm just wondering what the options are.
That is an option.
We can give direction, right? Yeah, we can give direction.
I thought that's what the Planning Commission was planning to do in the
Kind of
first.
sounded like it was vaguely in the future at some point, but not immediate. In my understanding, just sometime.
Would we put a date to that, or is that what we're looking at?
Or just say, hey, let's start. Because I like the ideas of having alternate ways of getting rid of the waste. I don't know if it's the right place for it. I don't understand all the legal challenges that are happening, but I think it's worth pursuing. We do need ways to figure out ways to get rid of waste that aren't just all going to landfill.
I would agree that that's true. I don't think that every community has to have their own waste transfer station, however. I think that it's...
Well, but if we want to have something a little bit more forward-thinking, we might be, leaders
I don't think we're talking about the recycling part of that.
No, the recycling is
I'm-
not
yeah,
really that
just-
issue.
We're talking about transfer stations and applying them, not applying them in M2 zones is what's before us.
That is what's before us. I think that is, just to kind of boil off all of the other things to what's germane to us. Because that there is a pending ordinance deal in play right now, we either say this is not the right place for a waste transfer station as it currently sits, or I'll let it go and let it turn into whatever it turns into. And I'm not really comfortable with that. So then, but afterwards, I mean, there is some space for some dialogue. Yeah, there's some space for looking at this thing. I would suggest that perhaps we take a good look at our city map and our zoning map and say, okay, where might one of these go? What would that look like that it wouldn't have negative impacts? And then if we see that there is a place and a will to do that, then we start working on an ordinance. We can't do that tonight.
No, I'm just curious what the options are.
Chair Heyer, and if I may just quickly again explain my earlier comment and kind of how I'm feeling it for the people that are here and came out and spoke tonight. I agree 100% that the place where these businesses now processing waste is not the proper place. I agree with that. But there are issues being raised by the business, and I don't understand the stuff that I'm being told that I can't get more information about today, and that's why I'm a little bit frustrated. But I understand the businesses that are there, and as they've said, as you were talking about these, I'll give you the perfect example. My next door neighbor has pigeons, and they face my patio. And as you're describing the bird pooping in my in my patio and landing on my roof, and just I don't like it very much. And so I'm imagining your businesses around this place dealing with the waste, etc. So I agree with that. I'm frustrated that I don't know all the facts to make an informed decision. So I just wanted to again reinstate that. Thank you.
Another issue that we had to deal with this pigeon problem.
So Chair Heyer, this ordinance before us, I just want to be clear. So there's quite a few M2 zones, correct?
Yes.
And if we allow this to continue as is, anyone or any person or any business could start potentially a waste transfer station in any of these, correct?
As it currently sits.
And just to piggyback on that also, if I understand it correctly, if we were to table this or extend it, that would allow someone to come in and fill out an application.
December 3rd.
Right?
A full application would grant vested rights.
Would grant vested rights, yep.
So that's why we either have to deal with it tonight or
Yes.
we have not dealt with it.
Uh-huh.
It's
either tonight or not.
So are we at a place where I could accept a motion?
Chair Heyer, I propose that we adopt proposed ordinance 2018-34.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember White, seconded by Councilmember Stevens, I believe it was first, to adopt ordinance 2018-34, and this is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Blair.
Aye.
Councilmember Traburka.
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez.
Abstain?
Councilmember Stevens.
Aye.
Councilmember White.
Aye.
Chair Heyer.
Aye. That passes 5 and 1 abstain. And would you like to articulate your abstaining vote or just let it go?
I already did.
Okay, then
Thank you,
fine.
Chair Heyer.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Chair Heyer, if I could, I'd like to make a comment.
I think it would be appropriate. I mean, there's a lot of people that have spoken and from the heart, and I think it would be well if we all did take a minute and explain why we voted the way we did. So if anybody would like to, I'd open that up to Councilmember.
If I could start?
Yes, Councilmember White.
The reasoning for my vote tonight was that there are quite a few M2 zones in the city, and I truly believe that there may be, and it may be that site that we look at as a permitted use or a conditional overlay, or whatever we come up with. But I believe that for the greater good of the rest of the city, we need it. Are not prepared, are not starting services.
Okay. Anyone else like to say anything before the people leave?
Yeah, I agree. I think that there's a lot of impact happening right now that was unforeseen, and I hope that Recycled Earth is able to deal with the issues that it's having, and that we kind of waste disposal.
Well, I think one person said that we're creating the waste. We need to find some way to deal with it.
Or we could be no waste, right?
Or yeah, I guess if we can quit throwing garbage away, we'd probably be all right, I suppose. The waste management guy wouldn't like it much, or but it's anyway. My concern is really the location. I am, over the months since this has been an issue, the notice of pending ordinance was put into place because of the trash issues, the smell issues, the bird issues, rodent issues that were obviously there. I think it would be naive to believe that anybody that says that they have not occurred. That type of use, I mean, there just are uses that just don't fit next door to one another, and this is one of those situations. I feel like Councilmember White that the manufacturing zone this isn't an appropriate use in a manufacturing zone at large. Might fit in a manufacturing zone under a conditional use permit. I mean a conditional overlay. But it'd have to be a unique circumstance. I just don't see it fitting next to a lumber yard or a pool business or something like that. And I believe that this use was, when it was started to be what it was then, and it's just kind of grown out of what it started to be. Sometimes that requires moving, as the Wheelwrights did when they outgrew their location up on Quincy. Sometimes you have to make a move. So that's kind of where I got to where I don't question the motive or the character or anything of the people. So I just wanted to say that. So
I believe the issues was complex, is that the Planning Commission voted 5-2, and you saw it. There are some elements of complexity in this ordinance, and I believe that the Planning Commission still has some issues to resolve and take care of it and present to us at a later date.
Okay, anything else? All right. Well, thank you. That concludes that one. The next item on our agenda tonight is the Natural Resources and Sustainability Stewardship Committee. Our own Amy Mabey has worked on this, as well as Councilmember White, who brought this forth as an initiative. And so I expect we'll hear from both of you. Is that right?
I hope so.
Okay.
Thank you, Brent.
Welcome.
Thank you. So before you this evening is a proposal relative to a new Natural Resources and Sustainability Stewardship Committee. So just a little bit of a timeline with this. On April 29th of this year, Councilmember Marcia White submitted a request to create this committee to the council and had interest in doing that. So after the budget process commenced, we kind of were able to work out and develop some ordinance language with some examples that Councilmember White had provided. And then during your October 23rd work session, we had a discussion on this, and then there were a few changes that were recommended to the ordinance. And I guess I'll just very quickly go through those, but specifying that the committee will meet at least on a quarterly basis. There wasn't really a time frame for meetings in the ordinance, and then including an attendance expectation of at least 75%, and clarifying that policy and program recommendations would come at the request of the council and or mayor. So with that, the proposed ordinance, just wanted to kind of go through what's included in that. The purpose of the committee would really to be an advisory board to advise the council and mayor regarding sustainability and natural resource stewardship educational programs, and really help inform you all on how to educate residents about sustainability, different types of initiatives. So the organization of the committee would include 7 to 9 voting members, and then 2 non-voting members, 1 from the Public Services Department and 1 from your own council staff, since this was a council-initiated ordinance. The terms for committee members would be 3 years, but for initial appointments, those would be staggered so that you don't end up with everyone getting off the committee at the same time. And rules of procedure would be established by the committee, and then once again, address that a little bit with the meetings, at least quarterly, with a 75% attendance expectation. There was, in the proposed ordinance and some discussion with leadership, some language amended recommendations for the ordinance, and that was just really to kind of adjust the ordinance a little bit. And you have that language before you, but instead of failure to attend, attendance below at least 75% of scheduled meetings over an 18-month period, so giving it some type of time frame with that as well. So the duties and powers of the committee would be to advise, once again, the council and mayor regarding waste reduction, recycling, disposal of hazardous materials, power and water conservation, and air quality and open space. The committee would also provide policy and program recommendations as requested by the council and mayor, identify grant funding opportunities, and also encourage pursuit of various state and federal support. So one of the things that came up and was requested with this, and really appreciate our public services manager for providing this, bringing this together so quickly, the current efforts that the city is doing, and there are quite a few of these. This is a condensed list, but really addresses the various efforts. So LED lights for Christmas Village that we'll all be able to soon enjoy starting on Saturday. LED lights for any streetlight upgrades that are occurring is also happening. Natural gas for our refuse trucks, composting at the City Green Waste Facility, and then also some compost of treatment plant waste and sediments. Recycling our recyclable materials, something that the city is continuing to offer. Metal recycling citywide, practicing water conservation and having water conservation education program. Watering parks during restricted time periods so that it isn't in the heat of the day. Reuse of fire hoses that are no longer usable by the fire department in various ways. Facility energy upgrades that have occurred. Completing projects with volunteers and inmates to really kind of reduce some of the costs associated with bringing in some others for that. And then using in-house tradesmen and engineers to complete projects as well. So trying to reduce some of the costs and doing projects all at once versus bringing in multiple people. And then right sizing, and so really looking at our fleet with fuel efficiency and appropriately sized vehicles for what the purposes of those are being used. So, sorry, there's more. There's more, and this isn't even everything, but redevelopment of existing buildings to promote sustainability. There's a lot of historic rehabilitation going on, brownfields rehabilitation, recycling road materials and demolition materials as well, urban infill development instead of that whole sprawl effort, continued completion of energy audit projects that were completed in a recent energy audit. And then there's some additional ones with
Questar gas. So this is something that's new with the telemetry installed to measure the gas being used and the savings that can occur. So the initial cost for the telemetry was $25,000, but the annual savings with looking at our gas usage is already measured at $40,000. So the system is going to pay for itself plus some within a year. And then fuel tank replacement, working with state contractors to increase efficiencies and improve the tanks and usage on those as well. And then we've done an ESCO audit, so energy service company with all of the city facilities, and in looking at that, there's an anticipated cost savings, but then also energy savings as well. And then recommissioning the municipal building, and with this effort with Rocky Mountain Power, there's a 25% project savings just with the incentive from that and completing all of those different things to help make the facility more efficient. So with that, I don't know if there's any questions for me. If you have any questions about the projects, Jay Lauder is here and administration can address those, but any questions regarding the committee, I'm happy to address, and I know Councilmember White has some comments on as well on establishing the ordinance and really kind of helping to spearhead this project.
Why don't we hold the questions until Councilmember White
Yeah, sure.
give us her vision and how it came to be and what you see going forward, and then we'll kind of worry about questions, huh?
Okay, that's great. Thanks, Amy. I appreciate that. So I really have to say that this was actually a nice call or an email from Anna, who's sitting in the back there, Anna Cash, and encouraging us to do something a little bit different. And I tried to figure out how to do that. So I started looking around, and Orem has a great ordinance, and they have a similar ordinance, but it was very much council-led. Not going to work if it was just council-led. I knew that we had to make sure that it was both council and mayor and administration forward-thinking, and so I appreciate Anna, your patience in waiting as long as it did, and your push from your side for me. You know, we're setting the bar pretty high. Just so you know, council staff and Amy did a great job, but from St. George to Logan, there's only 2 other cities that she looked at that have ordinances like this and committees like this, and including Salt Lake. Salt Lake does not have an ordinance or a committee like this, and so we're setting the bar high. We're being leaders, and I hope that that's a continuation of what we're going to see, and the people that we want to continue in our city and that really want and care about our city. A lot of the future out there, and I hope that this is one of those committees. It's also going to be a very heavy lift. It's a new committee with my thinking, which is not always the best thinking out there, but it's going to be a new committee. So hopefully our mission and our purpose and our passion for this environment and the water and the soil and the air and all of the other things that we're going to deal with will be explored, and I'm sure that there will be some mission statement changes throughout its course in the next over the next. It's also a heavy lift because it's one of the new committees where we're trying to get people from each of the districts and each of the different areas within our city, and also with a requirement of attendance. So we're going to try that. It's new to our committees, and so we're hopeful that this is something new that we'll see not just with this committee but with future committees as well. So it's going to be a heavy lift. But I want to thank those that have stayed and thank those that might get up and hopefully talk about the need. And I appreciate the opportunity to carry something forward that really is meaningful, not just to me, but the constituents in Ogden. So I appreciate that. And again, Ann, I really appreciate you reaching out. So thanks.
Are there any questions that we need to address before we get input? I think it was very well presented.
I have one.
Okay.
I'd also would like to recommend from District 3 Anna Cash to be on that committee. Well, when you come up
You know,
with
you can't speak from down there, Anna. So.
when you come up with ideas, Anna, you have to step forward. So, anyway, the question I have is, can you review what the education component is of this?
So I think a little bit, and I think the city has done a great job. We have had public services out at farmers markets and educating within our schools, and I hope that there are participants that will also carry that forward, so that we can not just, or we can get more people involved and maybe spread the wealth among many instead of just hitting a few here and there. And so I've really appreciated what we've already done, and I hope that we'll continue to do more education. But I also see this also as potentially not just educating our community, but educating us as well. Out how to do that to us as well.
Thank you.
Okay, we would like to receive input on this. If you're in the audience and would like to speak to this petition or this proposed ordinance, now would be the time. Come forward and give us your name and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Welcome.
Welcome. Hello. I'm not here to talk about chickens. That's over.
You got to tell us your
Thank
name,
you.
though.
What's that?
You have to give us your name.
Oh, Anna Cash, 1615 Canyon Road. I'm super excited about this. I feel like there is a need and there should be a push for more sustainability in our community. Actually, when I looked at which communities are actually doing this, there are so many. And also, Weber State is like top in our state with leading in sustainability. So they're just up the road. We don't need to go far. If you want to look at Salt Lake City Green, they have an amazing program. We could easily base what we want to do here in our city with what they're already doing. They're a larger area. We can scale it down to our size. I'm just excited and nervous and excited. So I don't know if you have any questions, but no? Okay, great.
Thanks, Anna. Anyone else?
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Florisa Langiano. I'm a Weber State student. My major is political science and my minor is communications, so being here is really cool. I really appreciate that you guys are actually thinking about this, because the future isn't just about next year or the year about before that or after that. It's about like 20 years from now. Like, we really need to start thinking now, because this doesn't just affect us, but a lot of us have children and brothers and sisters that need and deserve to see this, the beauty of Earth, the beauty of how we can make it a better future for them. Does that make sense? I, for one, I'm first generation, and I have the privilege to go to school, and it's emotional because I want more people to be like that. I want more people to get educated. I want more people to understand how important this is. And I really appreciate this, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
My name is Rachel Ballard, and I'm here in support of the committee. And I would just like to formally request that one of the voting members be a high school student to be able to represent the future generation. And this is something I'm passionate about, so this is me volunteering. Thank you.
Rachel Ballard. Okay, did we get that down? All right. Thanks, Rachel. Anyone else?
Hi, my name is Rachel Love, and I am a student at Da Vinci Academy. I'm a high school student. And I would like to say that the implementation of sustainability into every action that people do is extremely important. And having the sustainability board implemented into Ogden City is extremely important, because if we want a future, if we want a sustainable future, it needs to be incorporated into the very fabric of everything we do. That's all I have to say.
Thanks, Rachel. Anybody else?
Hello, my name is Christian Urbina. I also go to school at Da Vinci Academy, and I'm here in support for this committee because I think through education we will grow our community as a whole to support this environmental sustainability. I volunteer at a wildlife rehabilitation. I can't speak, but yeah, the center, the rehab center in northern Utah. And many of the wildlife patients that we get are there due to human impact. And just educating people as a whole to take care of the wildlife and environment would not only help the wildlife in general, but get the people to appreciate it as a whole and live with it.
Thank you.
My name is Thomas Benhart. I'm a local physician here, and I participate in a group, Citizen Climate Lobby, that's kind of been instrumental in trying to reduce emissions and improve air quality. And my daughter was involved with, some of you may have heard of the HR 007, the state resolution as far as environmental stewardship. And I have a copy of the Smithfield resolution that kind of was the birth child of that resolution, and I'm happy to pass that on in the process of how that was formulated. And it's like a full resolution, and then they have a number of 15, 11 short-term, 15 long-term statements on how to improve the environment, air quality, things like idling, and some of these were mentioned already. But I've been passionate about the world we live in, and I'm concerned about my children and my grandchildren. And when Amy attended one of our meetings, she told us that you guys were looking at establishing a committee. And so I wanted to come here and lend my support, and any information I can pass on to you and be instrumental in helping this go forward, then I'm here to do that. So thank you.
Thank you.
I want to hear again. Sorry. It's late. My name is Ed Mackner. I have been a teacher for about 30 years. I taught science at Rowland Hall and at St. Joseph's. And I just wanted to say one thing. Everything is connected to everything else. All one thing, I wrote that over my door. So when you're talking about waste, you're talking about sustainability. When you're talking about what we eat, you're talking about sustainability. Everything we do, everything is connected. The language separates everything, and it makes it difficult for us legally and sometimes to explain and educate to people who are not. One thing we have to understand, there are certain things we can do right now. Electrify our vehicles. For every 10 gallons of fuel, gasoline, only 1.5 gallons is used for motion because it's a chemical reaction. 8.5 goes to heat the universe. It's a waste of oil. What does oil become? Oil becomes water and carbon dioxide. Electric vehicles don't use that particular technology because of the magic of lithium in our cell phones, which we're using now in our cars. So we need to have information to make good judgments. And that's going to be the educational, so to speak, mandate. Electric vehicles there's 15 parts to an electric vehicle. There's 315 to an internal combustion engine. We will not see internal combustion engines in 20 years if we're still here. What we'll see is electric vehicles, because electric vehicles are extremely efficient. 85% for a 10-gallon tank of gas, so to speak, is used for motion. I own an electric vehicle. I have an all-electric house now, and I think it's doable. I think what we need to do is to have a brainstorming session with the students and ourselves to say, what is it that we know and how can we make these changes? For example, the police cars don't need to use gasoline. They can use electric motors. There's a savings of $1,000 a year for people who use electric vehicles versus gas vehicles. There's solar. There's also composting, like I mentioned before, which I wasn't prepared for. If we compost at the site, we don't need to truck it. What a savings for the... Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Sarah Chase, and I live at 1132 21st Street. I just have a couple quick thoughts. As I was listening to what you guys were discussing before us, I just thought, wow, what a difference not creating that much waste could make. And instead of maybe trying to figure out where we're going to put it all, maybe not create it in the first place. That's really what I think this council could focus on, whether it's at home or with our businesses or on a state or a city level. I don't think we need to reinvent the wheel. There's a lot of other people doing this work already that we can emulate, whether it's Utah State or Weber State or other cities. And we can really start at home by educating people, like he was saying, like having a composting workshop, what a difference that would make on just reducing household waste, or teaching people how to maybe utilize their yards to grow more food or to cut down water consumption. So thanks.
Thanks, Sarah. Anyone else?
Hi, my name is Rachel Hopkins. I'm at 661 East 500 North, Ogden, Utah. And I wasn't necessarily planning on speaking tonight. I actually am here for one of my master's school assignments, but it's been really a great, great learning experience to
a good
be
day to
here.
come.
And I'm really glad it was an assignment I had to come. I just think that, you know, this sounds like a great committee, and I think that as someone that is of the younger generation, but a working mother and actually working at Weber Human Services, it's something that I strive to do in a lot of theory, but not always in practice or practicality. I want to be green, and I want to think of the future for my kids and myself, but I know I fail in a lot of areas, and I really think that that's something that a committee like this could look at. What are ways to really, you know, get the fast-paced youth and technology-focused future, also really thinking and involved in really smart, efficient ways that we can incorporate sustainability into our businesses, our government, and our individual practice. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, is there anyone else?
Hi, my name's Beverly Brewer. I'm a resident of Ogden, and I also graduated from Weber State University with a degree in geography and environmental studies. So I've looked at this topic a lot and how important it is to become more sustainable in our growth, and also the threat of climate change. And it's really cool that you mentioned, well, I'm sorry, I forgot her name, but she mentioned how Weber State is a pioneer of sustainability and sustainable growth and would be a great example. And I really love how they have a green fund revolving, a green, what's it called? It's like the efficiencies, the money that they made from the efficiencies of like changing to LED lights, they take that money savings and put it into more green projects. So I thought that would be like a really great example to implement on this scale. So it's like sustainability is not just about taking care of the environment, it also translates into economic savings, like how, say, increasing urban forestry would clean the air, which would possibly reduce more emergency visits in the hospital, or reduce erosion so that less water gets transferred into the wastewater treatment centers and like overloads that, or how walkability and bikeability could reduce your carbon footprint, but also increase local economy because you're more likely to stop at a local business if you're walking or biking. So like thinking of designing the city in like less of an urban sprawl and more of a walkable environment could really raise the quality of life, I think. So I think this is a really important committee to create. So yeah, thanks for letting me.
Thank you. And is there anyone else? Okay, I'm not seeing anybody else moving, so, all right.
Chair Heyer, if I could?
Yes, please. I think it's appropriate.
All right.
Yep.
I propose that we adopt ordinance 2018-35.
I second it.
We have a motion by Councilmember White, seconded by Councilmember Stevens to adopt ordinance 2018-35, and this is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Traburka.
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens.
Aye.
Councilmember White.
Yes.
Councilmember Blair.
Aye.
Chair Heyer.
Affirmative. I think we all have to do something different today, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, that passes.
Yay!
Okay, I think we've heard from almost everybody that's here, that's left.
Chair Heyer, just real quick, I want to thank those that came out tonight and stayed through that really long talk. And thanks for sitting here, and thanks for caring. And we hope to see you soon and participating. And next steps are on us, I think. But you'll be hearing from us. Yeah, that's
There. Yeah, that's next. I was just going to say these new committees that we form, they tend to, you got to kind of figure out how it works for a little while. There's going to be some growing pains because there just always is. I'm happy that there's a council staff member that's going to be non-voting but present. I think that's going to help to guide this process. And I look forward to seeing what comes out of it. It'll be really interesting. I really like the approach that it's more carrot than stick. I think that is a lot more palatable to people. So, and it aligns up with your composting. Carrots compost, sticks don't. So.
You know what interesting is that for every gallon of gasoline, 20 pounds of carbon dioxide is emitted. The air looks clean, but you can't see CO2 because it's
That's okay.
colored gas.
Next item on our agenda is public comment, and this is an opportunity to address the council regarding your concerns or ideas on any topic. So, who would like to come and address the council?
Hello, my name is Amy Urbina, like I mentioned before. I am a first-generation student at Weber State University who is terrified with the impacts climate change has on my community for various reasons. According to the IPCC, which is composed of hundreds of scientists worldwide who volunteer their efforts in creating factual research on the anthropogenic cause of climate change, they have come to the consensus that we have 12 years to reduce our fossil fuel consumption by 45%, while also removing carbon that's already in the air before we see more catastrophic events, which means more more frequent and dangerous natural disasters, heat waves in the summer, right? Wildfires, which could potentially happen here in Utah just as bad as California, which we're seeing right now, which is devastating, and negative health impacts, which are extremely, extremely terrifying for all of us, especially with the air quality that we have, which is only going to get worse unless we take immediate action and hold ourselves accountable with the impacts that we are causing right now. So, if we don't act now and immediately, we may face catastrophic damages, as I just said. So, please consider those statements as well. And don't get me wrong, I am not here to blame or put fingers or basically put anyone at the edge of anything. We are here, a lot of young people, along with the 4 individuals who left, along with many others who were not able to make it for various reasons. are here because we are care and we're passionate about this issue. We want to support, if possible, solutions and possibly work hand in hand through civic engagement in order to make climate change solutions right here in Ogden, which is a beautiful city, which we take pride in. For me, I have lived here my whole life. I'm 21 years old. I've lived in the same neighborhood. I go to Weber State, grew up here, played in the parks. I have a little 4-year-old brother, and I'm terrified for his future. But we will hold our elected officials accountable, both at the city, county, and state level, to make sure that they actually act on climate change solutions, which, believe me, we have a long, extensive list of solutions that we have in mind. But again, we would like to sit down with each of you and go through these solutions in order to see how they would play out. And we really value the Sustainability Committee, don't get me wrong, but we'd like to see immediate and actual actions being taken, whether it comes from the committee or not. So, like I mentioned, we will hold everyone accountable in order to make these solutions feasible and reliable. Thank you.
You. Anyone else?
So my name is Zach Bray. You've probably seen me here before, and you probably know what this is about. My parents actually couldn't make it, but I'm just working on their behalf. My dad is 100% disabled, military, 3 Purple Heart, Silver Star in Vietnam, Bronze Star. And the reason why I'm here is we've had issues for the last 4 years with City Code 1538.3, which is the zoning buffer that commercial businesses are supposed to enforce. And you've probably seen where my parents' house is. I don't live there, but I just can't stand seeing people get stepped on like this. And this pizza restaurant, the Pie Pizzeria, moved in right next door, had a patio. They did like a 3,000 square foot addition, and would have like live music and just so much noise, and they didn't follow the ordinance. And the developer just said, I won't do a thing unless the city makes me. And I get it. He's a businessman. Like, that's, you know, it's dollars and cents. But he shouldn't be. Why would we have the law if we don't follow it, right? So the main thing is we've been working with Congressman Bishop is involved. He's working with the Ogden City lobbyist, wondering if it concerns funding, if Ogden isn't a pro-veteran city or pro-homeowner city. I've met with the lieutenant governor over it. Just the amount of people that it's taken and the amount of power just to get something through is unreal. And honestly, I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed of Ogden. It didn't used to be like this. And I get how important tax dollars are and how much we need them. You know, we need the tax dollars. We need to make the developer happy, but you need to work with your bread and butter, which is your people, your disabled veterans, you know. And it's 8:30 right now. The noise is just starting. It's going to go until 2 in the morning. And you guys can think about that. You know, when you go to bed, it sucks. Yeah, to be frank, and nobody should have to go through something like that. And if you're just going to keep making them go through that and call the police have put in lights. We've had rocks thrown at our dog. We found syringes in the backyard from people just toss them over. Called police 40 to 50 times just for noise complaints, and nothing. So why have the law? You know, we shouldn't have to go to one of the most powerful congressmen in the country to get anything done. And they're just as upset as we are. You know, they don't like it. They don't like hearing about it. And honestly, we'll do everything we can to just be fair. We're not looking for anything. We're not looking for money. We're not looking to do anything other than to stand up. I'm just trying to help the people that are getting stepped on. And honestly, if you don't want to do anything, that's your choice, but it's something you're going to have to, I hope you think about. I hope you think about it tonight, you know. So that's really all I've got to say.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else?
Hello, I'm Christian Urbina, related to Amy Urbina. And I'm worried for the future as well. I have a 2-year-old sister. It's kind of sad that I have to worry for her and her future. So, I would like Ogden to be a leading example in reducing air pollution, CO2-wise, yeah. On Tuesday, I went to Antelope Island, and it was polluted due to CO2 emissions and the California wildfires. So I just want more to be done, to be honest, because it's a scary future that it's going to happen soon.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, seeing no more movement, comments from the mayor.
I'm sorry the gentleman left. There's a lot of misinformation that came out of that statement. We've been working with that family, and the interest is there for a long time. So I've appreciated an opportunity to address those publicly, but I know Mark's been working on that today, and we've been on that situation for a long time. Sometimes there are legal restrictions on what we can do, and I'm certainly sorry for their frustrations. Appreciate everybody staying late. I recognize this has gone on a little bit longer than usual. Appreciate Council Member White bringing this and really being the champion for a lot of this. I will say one of the comments that I appreciated hearing was we need to have more fast-paced youth. I think you made that comment, and I'm looking at, is it Rachel Ballard? I'm just kidding. I know exactly who you are. She runs cross country with my daughter, and she's one of the fast-paced youth that we would love to have on a committee like this. And so this is dialogue we've engaged in for a long time. It's part of the reason I rode my bike to work every single day for an entire year. We want to have this be something that's baked into how we plan for the future. So we double our population in the next 30 years is what they're guessing. We go from 3 million to 6 million people. If we don't change and shift paradigms, the quality of life that we've all loved and that we're recognized for here in Ogden more than I think just about anywhere else, we will suffocate that. And so we're committed to that. Appreciate all the work that's gone into this, and we appreciate the commitment going forward. And I'll be honest, with the youth and the younger people that are involved in this right now, those paradigms change with you guys. You're not going to get the 50 and 60-year-old people that grew up in a rural environment that drove their car everywhere and expect to park in front of the store. You're not going to get them to change their habits. It's those kids that are going to universities now and get involved in these initiatives. So I applaud you all being here. I applaud you all being here so late, and we look forward to this conversation going forward. All that being said, it is Thanksgiving week, so I encourage you all to have a wonderful holiday weekend with your families and come downtown, watch as Jay quickly snuck out, his group has done a phenomenal job as always with the Christmas Village, and we hope to have a really warm gathering space for everybody through the holidays, and we wish you all a wonderful holiday. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any council member comments?
I have a couple of comments. First of all, I want to thank Council Member White for bringing this forward. I think it'll be a stepping stone for other opportunities that we would have, because we have the budget coming up, and there are many things that we need to be addressed in that budget. The thing I like about it is that we're forward thinking, and we're the leaders here in not only our surrounding areas in Weber County, but also throughout the state. It's amazing that only 2 communities are showing that they want sustainability. The other thing is I appreciate the youth here this evening. I hope that we incorporate their thinking into this opportunity that we have. 2, I'd like to piggyback on what the mayor said about holidays and Thanksgiving. I hope you have a great Thanksgiving, and be thankful for the many blessings that you do have. And also on Saturday evening, we'll have the electric light parade right down here in Ogden. We'll light the Christmas Village and have some fireworks. If you want to have hot chocolate, I'm sure they have that there too, so you can have that. But come down for a great evening on Saturday. I think it starts around 5 o'clock, doesn't it? The parade. So we hope to see you there. Thank you.
Any other comments?
I'll make one. We started this meeting tonight being told that those sitting in the shade are doing that in the tree that someone else planted. And following that sentence, I will say that Marcia, or Councilmember White, planted a very big tree tonight. So I applaud her in her efforts for doing that, not only for us and us right now, but for this will be a legacy that's left. So thanks for Marcia for doing that. I'd like to thank you all we've almost got through another year, so thank you, and I wish you all a happy Thanksgiving. And I'm sure you all are aware that Weber State was ranked number 2 in the tournament they're in, so that which allows them for a first round bye, and hopefully we can pack the football stadium up there and turn this into a yearly event up there. So
Weber State.
great, great, great.
All right. Been wanting to do that for a long time. The mayor always does it.
Chair, just real quick. I do want to say, and I did the easy part as far as getting an ordinance together and then giving it to staff. I think what I want to relay is that we do listen to the constituents, and thank you again for coming forward and allowing this to happen. So we do listen to you guys. We do try to take action, and I just want you to know that I did the easy part. It's always the idea of someone else is the hard part.
I think that's a good sentiment that, that's one thing I've learned about you good people is that you do listen to those who elected you. And I hope our citizens really know that. Sometimes the mechanics of it don't show like that, but it absolutely is true. When we receive a phone call, we act on it. It's not just white noise to us. It's something that we there's not always an answer. That's the downside, but we always look for something. We always try to find a solution. So, any other comments?
Shop local Saturday.
Hey, yeah.
Well, and see you on Saturday. Look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I have a motion by Councilmember Blair, second by
Second.
Councilmember White.
Oh,
Yeah, you were too late.
never mind.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we'll see you in 2 weeks. We do not meet next week.